How is it going, everyone? Hope everybody's doing well. Let me turn my phone to vibrate so that we don't get interrupted. Hopefully everybody's doing well. We will get started here in just a few minutes. I wanted to... Oh, we got some viewers already out of the gate. That's what I like to see. Always a good sign to see people show up to the lives. So, yeah. What's up, you two? Brendan and Jermaine, thanks for showing up and hanging out. We'll be diving into the content here in just a few minutes. Wanted to give everybody a couple minutes to going through exam stuff. So yes, and we're going to talk a little bit about CCNA today, and if you are preparing for CCNA, what that's going to look like. So we'll take a look at some of the updates and things like that. So I talked a little bit about how to know what images, platforms, and things like that, software, hardware and software that you would need to go learn on for your certifications in the coaching session for Friday. But I figured I would take that information because it was a good session. Some looks like a lot of folks benefited from it. So we're going to go through do the same thing here today, go through that and all that good stuff that goes with it. So we'll give everybody a couple more minutes to get in here and go from there. I don't believe there's any changes for CCNP, but we can definitely look. Usually there'll be a notification when there's a change coming, or there'll be some sort of, they'll put it up on the website that there's something coming, but not that I'm aware of. The only changes I'm familiar with are for CCNA, like Brendan pointed out. So, but we'll cover that here in just a couple minutes. Wanted to wait for some, if anybody was going to join, give them a couple minutes to jump in. I'll treat it like a regular call if you were on with like Microsoft Teams or WebEx or, Zoom, stuff like that. Everybody have a couple minutes to get in. But we'll take a look at that, see if there's anything spectacular. I will be at Cisco Live this year. I will be in Vegas for this entire time period. So if you're going to be at Cisco Live, let me know through any of my social medias, whether it's YouTube or Twitter or LinkedIn or what have you. If there's an opportunity to meet up at some point, definitely we'll see if we can't make that happen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't have a packed agenda, but it's full enough to where I still should be able to go around the world of solutions and check a bunch of stuff out. So I'm looking forward to that. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and dive in and start going through what it is we're here for, right? We're here to get a better understanding of what it is that we need to know certification-wise and technology and things like that. If anyone that's watching has any questions while I'm live, feel free to throw that in the chat, and I'm going to do my best to try to answer those questions. If you're watching this in recorded format and there's something that I talked about and you want more information on it, drop a comment in the comment section below, and we'll get started. So the whole purpose of this live here is to go over the hardware and software platforms for the certification exams you might be studying for. So you might be going after your, let's say you're going after for Jermaine's point, CCNP Enterprises. Well, what do you need to know? What operating systems do you need to be labbing on? What kind of stuff do you need to be aware of for that? So we're going to talk about how that comes into play, and like, how would you find that out? Like, am I shooting in the wind on the version of code that I'm on. I did that for a long time until I was clued in on it when I started studying for my CCIE. So we're going to definitely go into those details. So the way that you figure this out is if you come to Cisco's website and you come down here to certifications, and I'm going to go ahead and open this up in a new tab. We go to Cisco Learning and we come down here to Explore Certifications, and we can come down, and they changed this up a little bit, so it's a little bit different than it used to be. But so we're looking at, you got CCNP Enterprise is a popular one, so we'll take a look at that one. So if we look at data center, actually we'll click on it. It's one of those. So we'll take a look at CCIE data center. We'll take a look at service provider. We'll expand service provider, and then we'll do security, since that seems to be a popular one. So what you would do in this particular case, and then the other one that we'll take a look at if we go back on popular, we'll look at CCNA, just because, and we'll knock out that one first because of what's coming. Now, normally, whenever there's an update to the exam, this information is somewhere in here of any of the new changes. So I don't know if there's any when the changes are coming, but if wherever the changes are going to be listed, this is where they'll be listed. And what they'll do is you'll need to look at the exam itself. So if you come to exams and training and you look at the exam details, so I don't know. Oh, here, there's your answer. So last date to test CCNA 1.0 is August 19th of 2024. So they're giving you basically 4 months. So if you're studying for the CCNA today and you want to study for it, then now available CCNA version 1.1 exam topics. So download now. Okay, so this is the newest, this is the latest and greatest. So if you're looking at CCNA, this is what you need to be aware of. So I'm curious of what the delta is. So, okay, what minor updates are included? New cover, generative AI, cloud network management, and machine learning. So you can start studying for this August 20th. So basically they gave you just under 4 months. So if we look at this, what was it? Cloud network management and machine learning. So it should be like automation and programmability is what automation impacts network management, controller-based networking. I have to compare 1.0 to 1.1, but it doesn't look like anything significant. So, but this is how Cisco is going about their processes now. Is they're going through and with the new exams, they're going through and doing minor updates through their lifecycle process. So instead of having to come up with a whole new exam, they can make a quick adjustment here, add or take away whatever they feel like they need to in order to keep the certification relevant to what you guys are working with in production. So it doesn't look like anything else has really changed, and I'm looking through this and I'm not seeing anything spectacular. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. So, which is good. So there's going to be, they're adding some machine learning and generative AI and cloud network management. So nothing spectacular. So I don't know if there's going to be an update to any of the certification guides or anything like that. So if there is, that'll be posted by Cisco at some point in the future. So other than that, that's pretty much that for CCNA. Now, I do want to make a quick adjustment to some of the like the workbooks that I've been working on and things like that. Most of you are familiar with the Cisco Enterprise workbook that I released back in January or so. That's consistently selling. If you guys want to know more about that, let me know. I can give you guys populate a link. But that book has been doing pretty well, and I'm working on a workbook for CCNP Encore and NRC. So it's a conglomeration of two. So I'm taking the Encore and the NRC blueprints, I'm kind of converging them in together for a practical workbook. And it'll be, because somebody asked me a question about, could you create a topology that would incorporate all the different technologies that are on the exam blueprint and make that into a one really big topology that, like a lab exam, if you will. So sure, sounds like a great idea. And so that's exactly what I started doing. I'm about probably halfway through the first half, which the first half is going to be deployment, which is going to be you working on standing everything up from the ground up. So it's a complete walkthrough, and it's all encompassing. So everything will be in the workbook. And then the back half will be troubleshooting. So then I will write a bunch of troubleshooting tickets where you'll have to systematically troubleshoot your way through the lab to figure everything out. So that I'm working on. I'm actually looking at putting a quick pause on that, and I'm actually looking at doing going back to the basics with like CCNA, and then creating I talked about this in a video before, creating a workbook for CCNA. And what's up, Russ? Going through and creating a workbook that targets the configuration specifics of CCNA, and then a bunch of lab-specific packet tracer files that if somebody's interested in getting their CCNA, it would target that, and then they would be able to work into the Encore and an RC if they get further along. So that's kind of what I'm looking at doing, but I'm still going through the development of what I want to do. So I just want to look quick little things that I'm working on doing, because I want to give like a crawl, walk, run setup for any of the content that I release, and that'll probably be the first workbook, and a flip over to a video series where everything would go up on Patreon at that point. So be the first like part of the All Access Pass that I'm working on. So with that being said, that's pretty much where I'm at with that, and the Encore and RC workbook is still underway. It's coming along swimmingly. It just takes some time to write everything and get it all built out and stuff like that. So in respect to an Encore and RC, for those of you that are a little further along in your certification journeys and you're looking at, you may not care about getting your CCIE, but you want to make sure you're going after, or you're leveraging the right versions of code and images for spending the time in the certification world. And there's a quick, easy way to do that. And the quick, easy way to do that, and I have a bookmarked here, but if you were to come, let's look at the certifications again real quick. Let's go back to Enterprise, and we're going to look at CCIE. So we'll take a look at the most popular track, which is going to be Enterprise. You're going to see more people getting their CCIEs in Enterprise than you will any other track. But if we look at Enterprise, and we look at the resources for this, actually, they keep changing this thing up. Let's go to Enterprise. Can I go to here? No, they keep changing it on me. And I used to have it memorized, but now I don't. I forget where I found it the other day. Let's see if I can't find it again. Resources. Let's see here. What I'm looking for is the additional resources. I might have to go to the Cisco Learning Network in order to find what I'm going after. Let me go back to... I've lost myself here on the website. But if you look at... Let's just click back on here. So Cisco Learning Network, okay, this is what I'm looking for. If you're on the Cisco Learning Network and you click back on CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure and you come down here to additional resources, you have the Enterprise v 1.1 equipment and software list. This is what you're looking for. This will tell you which versions of code and what platforms you need to be labbing on. So this is telling you that you need to have CAT 8KVs, you need to have iOS-V running 15.8 code, iOS-V L2 running 15.2 code, and then if you're going to be messing around with SD-WAN on the Vitella image set, you need to be running 20.9. So these are the things that you'll, from a software perspective, and if you want to dive into the hardware, this is what you need to be working on. CAT 9300s running 17.9 code, and this is what's going to allow you to play around with things like SDEA and things like that. So that's what you eventually would go through and want to research. You know, whether or not you had direct access to a lot of the stuff, that might vary from, you know, day to day. But the big thing is here is you wouldn't want to be spending all your time on a particular version of code like 15.3, right? The code would be too old and stuff like that. How far they're going to test you also will vary. So if you look at the entire software list of the devices that you're going to be tested on, the versions of code that you're going to be tested on, that's really going to put into perspective of the scope of potential for you. So how far are they going to take SD-WAN in the lab exam? I don't know. That really depends. I mean, they give you a blueprint for a reason, and your job is to go through as much of it as you can so that you're that much better off in when you actually go sit for your exam. So just some things to keep in the back of your mind when you're looking at how do I go through and make a decision as to which versions of code I should be working on. If I'm going to go buy hardware, what should I be buying, so on and so forth. So that's for enterprise infrastructure. So what's cool about this is also going to help if you're going after Encore and an RC and you want to build like a CML lab. This is going to help you with that because all those same versions of code would be available to you and all that good stuff that goes along with it. So there's that. Now let's pivot a little bit over to one of the other more popular exams, and that's going to be security. So here in security, we're going to go, let's see here. We're going to click here. And see, this is where it screws me up a little bit. Here we go, lab exam details. So we're going to click on this. This is going to redirect me to the learning network. And then I'm going to come back here to security. And I'm going to click on additional resources. And then equipment and software list. So identical to what we saw just a minute ago with enterprise. The only difference is that we have more devices, so more operating systems that you have to know, and it gives you a little bit more hardware. So let's talk a little bit about why you see a little bit more on this version, this exam and track than you do on enterprise. And the main reason for that is because there's more things for you to be able to secure. So you've got, you know, your firepower, your management platform for all your firewalls. You're going to have both the old school ASA and you're going to have the new school firepower in order to do things like next generation firewalling, things like that. Now if you come down here down to the physical equipment, you have two different versions of ASA, 5512 and 5516, running two different versions of code. This would be because you're going to be doing something like multi-context mode and clustering. So as far as I know it, you can't cluster or do multi-context mode on the ASAV. I don't believe it's supported. So if you wanted to do things that require the hardware, this is how you would have to go about doing it. So just some food for thought. If you're looking at going the security track for whatever reason, these are the versions of code and the platforms that you would have to either go buy if you want the hardware to it, or go through and find the versions of code online. So like you could get most of this stuff through CML. You can get ASA and you can get the CSR 1000V, but and the iOS VL2 image, but you can't go out and get ICE or WSA or ESA. Those are going to require you to either have support account, service contract, things like that. Maybe you can download the trial version of it or something along those lines. I have Cisco partner level access to a lot of stuff, so I can download pretty much any one of these that's a virtual machine, minus the hardware. So if you're wanting to dive into any of this stuff, this is how you would go about finding out which versions of code you'd want to go through. So another track that's popular too, however, it is not quite as common. So we'll look at over here service provider, and we'll look at the lab exam for this guy, and then we will additional details for this guy as well. So service provider is a much more niche track. You know, unless you work for a service provider, a lot of times you're not going to care about what the track is. But I happen to work for a service provider, and I'm a nerd, so I like to geek out on this stuff anyway. So you get the versions of code that they want you to learn, and you go through it, and then you'll notice that ICE isn't here, but you'll get a Linux box to log into and things like that for doing your automation and things like that. So that's what Network Services Orchestrator runs on Linux. So it's a package that you download and install, and you can run it on your Ubuntu box once you have it running. So there's that. And then the last one we'll take a look at is going to be Data Center. So Data Center is identical, right? We take a look at the exams. We take a look at the versions of code. And Data Center is going to be one of those certifications that is very, very hardware dependent, because of the fact that you have to deal with ACI and stuff like this. So there's going to be a lot of hardware on the Data Center exam, because very little of this can be emulated in software. So I get questions on this quite a bit of how would I go about learning the Data Center track if I don't have the hardware, and the answer to that question is, short of just reading books and reading documentation and watching videos, you need hardware. Now, the one thing you could do is you could go through and for the Nexus 9K platform to learn things like VXLAN, VPC, do the routing and multicast components and things like that. You could access a handful of Nexus 9Ks from CML and build out a small lab and do something like that. That would work. However, if you wanted to get into anything like the Nexus 7004, which is the smaller 7K that they make, they have SOUP 2E, and they have at least one F3 module, which does layer 3 routing. And I believe with these two, you should be able to do OTV on the 7K. And you need SOUP 2E to do OTV, by the way. So they have the 5672, they have the 7004. They don't have any Nexus 2Ks, which is good. I'm kind of glad they don't have any FEXs here. But still, they have the 93108, the 93180. These are both leaf switches if you were going to do VXLAN. 9372, I forget what they would use that for. I do know that I think this is another leaf switch. But then they have the 9336 and the 9332 to do ACI. So this exam will be heavily focused on ACI. I can guarantee you that, because they have the APIC in here. But they also have Nexus Dashboard. And if anybody has watched any of my content over the past year or so, I did do a Nexus Dashboard series, which is similar to ACI in some respects, but also different in a lot of others. So if you ever have to work with the VXLAN fabric inside of a data center and you don't want to deploy it manually, Nexus Dashboard is a good way to do that, especially with the fabric controller version of 12. But then there's also the orchestrator here to do other stuff. So not exactly sure what you would use orchestrator for. I've never used it. But you also have, the SimC version 4 for your server management, and they give you the versions of code on the Nexus 9Ks that you would have to learn how to work with. So a lot of really cool stuff that you would have to go learn. Some of this can be virtualized, like the Nexus Dashboard can be virtualized, run that in a VM. It's a heavy VM, pretty heavy. I think it was like 24 gigs of RAM and like 4 or 8 CPUs or something like that. It's kind of a beast. But then UCS, you're going to run that on your 5108 chassis. If you're going to be running C-Series, you're going to be definitely running them on the SimC for that. So there's a lot of cool stuff that you're going to have to work with. They do have a VIC in here if you want to do your VIC 1340 and stuff like that for doing all your virtualization of your networking and things like that. So a lot of cool stuff that you're going to have to go through, and if you want to build out a lab, I have no idea how much this would cost. Now, I do know the guy that wrote the book for ACI. He's a friend of mine, and actually, funny story, in my last job, this is probably, 6 years ago? Yeah, if I had to guess, like 6 years ago. No, not quite that long ago. 3, 4, something like that. We both went to Nashville to work on a customer project, and we went out to dinner after we got off of work for the day. And as we were talking, I said, okay, if I want to learn ACI, and I will say I have $10,000 and I have liquid funds to go buy all the stuff that I need. I want to go buy an APIC. I want to go buy 1 spine and 2 leaf switches. What are my options for that? And he smiled, shook his head. He goes, it doesn't work that way. You can't cobble together a lab on eBay, is what he told me. There's some stuff out there you can't do. Now, mind you, this was 4 years ago. So I was like, okay. So I have that same understanding today. I don't know if that's still the case, but what I do know is that if you want to do this and you're messing with Gen 2 hardware and things like that to do ACI multi-site and all the other cool stuff that can come out with that, these are some of the things you'll have to be aware of. So if you want to go build a data center lab, this is how you would go about doing that. So if you didn't know about any of that type of stuff when you were labbing stuff up, I understand. When I was clued in on this, I was like, oh, this is how you do it. So good stuff there. So with that being said, that is pretty much the high level that I wanted to talk to you guys about in terms of what platforms and what software images you would have to go out and download and have running in your lab in order to be able to test all the features out and the capabilities that go along with that type of stuff. So that is pretty much what I wanted to chit-chat about. There are other exams out there. There's you've got wireless, which is a part of enterprise. If we look at let's see here. We want wireless. Here we go. Let's take a quick gander at wireless and see what that one takes. So if you're looking to understand the wireless exam, we'll take a look at enterprise wireless and do the exact same thing. So can this one be done? It can be. It's a little tricky. So you would need quite a bit of hardware still, right? You would need your CAT 9Ks, your CAT 3600, CMX, DNA center, ICE, prime infrastructure, a bunch of different wireless access points, and then a bunch of different controllers. I don't know how much of this would actually be. If you could do this in all on, say, the private cloud controller, or how that would work, I don't know. But what I do know is that if you wanted to go through and learn how to do this, what I would suggest you go do is when I started studying for CCNP wireless, or actually I think it was CCNA wireless. Now that I think about it, I went out and I bought a controller, so a 2504 with a 5 AP license, and I bought a couple of 3702s, and I was able to join the APs to my controller, and I was able to go through and deploy some access points and some SSIDs and pre-shared keys and all that kind of stuff. I didn't take it very far, but I wanted to be able to, no matter where I was in the house, I wanted to be able to roam and stuff like that, just to test it all out. And it seemed to work out pretty well, but it was just one of those things where I knew I wasn't going to take it very far. It just, it is what it is. So I don't take it too far for wireless, but it's on the list of things if I wanted to go test it out, lab it up. This would be one of the it'd be more feasible than data center, because data center has a whole lot more heavier lifting with its hardware than wireless would, but there's still quite a bit of equipment that you would need for wireless. Another question that I get quite a bit is, okay, so I want to go get CML so that I can test this stuff out. What would you recommend I go get in order to do this? So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my friend ebay.com, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at what you could buy, and I'll hopefully point you guys in the right direction when it comes to this. There we go. Open WRT for the win. Oh, that must be a wireless thing. I'm not familiar with it. So if you're talking about a decent size server, so I know, and I get quite a few questions on this. You know, some people live in condos, some folks live in apartments, some folks, you know, they just don't have the space, or they're not willing to. A lot of times it's the space, or they can't deal with the constant noise of a server. They don't have a basement like I do to have this thing running 24 hours a day, and that's fine. No one said you had to. So what I commonly tell people is I will tell you what I've bought because I have direct experience with it. So between the Cisco C240 M5, this is the last server that I bought. It's a little bit on the expensive side, but it works out really, really well. Now, I bought the last server that I bought intentionally for doing a lot of VMware stuff on it. So ESXi8, NSX4, Horizon, things like that. I wanted a beefy server. And I went through the process of finding the correct CPU and then matching that CPU to a particular platform. So I actually went in here and I was like, gold 6152. So sometimes it comes back with what you were looking for. Actually, this looks like the server that I bought. And it's about the same price. So let's actually take a look at this one. This might be the same server. It's a different seller, but the same box, essentially. So I bought. This is what I got, and so it was a C240 M5. It originally came with 128 gigs of RAM, but I went out and I bought an additional 250, and so I have 384 gigs of RAM now. It's gold 6152, which will allow you to run ESXi8, and so with two 22-core CPUs at 2.1 gigahertz, that comes out to like, I was 90-ish gigahertz. Let me pop into it real quick. Advanced. I can show you the server here real quick. Alright, so here we go. Here's the server that I bought, and it seems to work out great. It is 44 CPUs at 2.1 gigahertz, and it gives me 92 gigahertz of compute. Now, I do have to upgrade I have to go put a new license on the server. It has expired, but I buy a yearly membership to VMUG. What are they? Eval experience. So VMUG Advantage. So I end up. So I get a yearly license that I can throw at this. So all this means right here is I just can't power on any virtual machines. That's all that means. So I'm not too critical on that. So for like $200 a year, you get year-long licenses for basically everything that VMware makes. So pretty cool there. But it allows me to run quite a bit. And I had Firepower, ESXi8, NSO, some other stuff that was going on, Win 7. I was actually, so I forget how long ago it was, but I was talking about the different exams that I'm looking at creating workbooks for, and one of them was a security VPN exam. And so I ended up installing Windows 7, and I think I already have yep, it's right here. So I have this VM here is my Windows 7 box, and if I pop open, this is a virtual ASA. I don't think it's powered on at the moment. It is. It is powered on. But if I come over here and I log into this guy here and continue. So I will take this off screen real quick. So it is going to pull up the firewall that's currently running my home internet. So it's kind of cool what it gives you the ability of doing and seeing and all that type of stuff. So it works out pretty good. If I go to the device firewall dashboard, it's cool what it allows you to see and all that good stuff that goes along with that. But this is one of the reasons why I installed the Windows 7 box, so that I'd be able to have the ASDM working and all that good stuff that goes with it. So there's that. So I'll fix the the license here probably later today. I just have to apply the new license. So pretty straightforward stuff there. So that's the server that I bought. Now, if you can't afford $1,300 and it's free shipping, so actually Hollywood, Florida, I would drive down to Hollywood, Florida. I'm looking to go where it's warm. So let's look at, what other platforms could you work with. So you just need something that's going to be able to run virtual machines and all that type of stuff. Well, this one right here would probably work out just fine. It's much more it's much more affordable. Let's see here. You're going to need at least a few things, right? You're going to need enough CPUs to do the job. And then you're going to need, I like how it says ESXi 8 on here, but if you're not running, and it doesn't tell you what processor type. Okay, so it doesn't even have a CPU in it. So that's not going to help us out at all. So let's go back over here. Let's say Cisco. Another one you could do, I also have a Dell R810 as the other server that I have, and it works out really well. This is very similar to what I have. I have a slightly newer CPU. I have the E7, not the E5. So, but this one works out pretty well. Yeah, right here, this is the one I have. So, E7, 4870s, 2.4 gigahertz at 40 cores. Yep, this is the server that I have. And from the same company that I bought it from. Actually, this one's a little bit cheaper than I bought. I think maybe about the same. But this is what I bought. It works out really good. Now, I have two of these in my basement right now. And it could very easily do all of my compute that I want. So the CPU model is a little old, so it won't run ESXi 8. But if you're fine with running ESXi 7 and you want to run CML on it, that would work out great. It would do the job for you. Although both of my Dell boxes are bare metal installs of Eve, so that I can virtualize really big topologies and things like that, because I like to mess around with big stuff, and it works out really, really well. So it's a cool platform and gives me a lot of flexibility. So it's 4 10-core processors and 250 gigs of RAM is pretty good. So there's another example of something else you could buy. If that's a little too pricey for you, C220, but you want something a little bit lighter, you could go get something like this, which would, for $300, it's a rack mount, which means you slide it into a rack, and that would do the job. 28 cores, 128 gigs of RAM, so it's basically two 14-core CPUs, and it's got two 600 gig, 10,000 RPM drives in it. So it's just a matter of going through and seeing what your options are. You might have to do a lot of Googling to figure out some specifics, but these are the platforms that I would recommend. Now, if you don't like rack and you want tower, I don't think Cisco makes any tower servers. We'll say Dell Tower server. let's see that they have. Okay, PowerEdge T40, 12 cores, 32 gigs. I have no idea how recent T430 is. Maybe I need to go a little bit older, but for the sake of argument, let's just say that that works. So this will be a tower server. E5 2620 V3, 12 cores. So I'm assuming that it's going to be, so you get two of those, two 6-core CPUs, so you get 12 cores, and it doesn't specify the processor speed. So in case you're wondering, how do you calculate your compute? Well, the simple answer to that was you would take figure out whatever your clock speed is. So in this case here, it's E5 2620. So we take that, and if I open up Google and I plug that in, it'll pull up Intel Arc. Nope, I want... Here we go. So I'll just add this over here. So we're looking at 12 cores. You're looking at processor's base frequency is 2 gigahertz. So if you take 2 times 12, that's how many? I'm sorry, 2 times 12. So if we go back over here, you would have 2 times 12 be 24 gigahertz. That's how much compute you would have for the CPU side of the house. So if you don't need a lot, you just need to be able to run, CML and, with this, because this has got 32 gigs of RAM in it, which probably means that you can add more to it. If we look at this, I'm only seeing 32 gigs of compute. Or I'm sorry, 32 gigs of RAM. Without seeing the RAM slots, which I would assume were probably underneath this guy, then I would have to see if there isn't an option for 64. So we take this guy right here, and this guy's got 64 gigs of RAM. The only difference is he's got a newer processor. So this one here is 16 cores. So if we look at this guy and that's 2620. So if we come back over here to this side here, we paste that in. Intel Arc. Actually, this is the one I'm looking for right here. This guy right here, he is 2.1 gigahertz at 16 cores. So if we go back over here, he's got 2.1 or 2 gigahertz, and you've got 2 cores. So that means you're going to have, right? Am I looking at that right? Yeah, total cores is 16. You got 2 of them, that's going to be 32. So let's close this one out. You'd have 32 cores, 64 threads. So you would have 32 times 2, which would give you 64 gigahertz. So, and this one's got 64 gigs of RAM. That would actually be pretty solid and would give you the flexibility you're looking for. So for, how much is this guy? $800. It's a little bit more expensive, slightly better CPU model. It would give you the flexibility you're looking for. So this would be a good place to start. And it's, the cool thing is you can power things on, power them off. So if you're done studying at the end of the night, you can power the server off and go about your business. But so it's just that it gives you an idea of what your options are when it comes to building this out, because it is important. If you don't know what you're doing, if you've never spec'd out servers and compute what your capabilities are, this is a good practice for that. So the big thing is, if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to spend a lot of time Googling things to try to figure it out. So it's good to learn this stuff, because if you ever get into a scenario where you're having to try to figure this out in the real world for like production or servers that are going to be used in your company's environment, you're going to want to know what your options are. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on this particular area, because I know it can be kind of a tricky period of time. And do you have to go out and buy a server? No, you don't. If you have a beefy enough computer, like I have a gaming rig that I've had now for probably 5 years, it's definitely paid for itself in what I'm able to do. So it's just a matter of getting the right equipment to do the job you need it to do, right? That's what it really comes down to. So, but I enjoy digging into it and figuring this type of stuff out. So, but that's pretty much what I wanted to go over with you guys today. If buying a server is out of the question for whatever reason, and you have a decent computer, you could always get CML, download it, and then you could always extrapolate the images from CML and then run them in GNS3 or Eve. GNS3 would make more sense to me because you can run GNS3 locally, and you could also run it on a server. But if you don't have a server, you need to run it locally. That would give you the flexibility to do that. So there's definitely options out there if you want to learn it. You just have to be willing to go out and mess around with this stuff. I started off on a computer, and I worked my way into servers and things like that. It wasn't that I had servers overnight. So it's just one of those things where as you're going through your journey of learning and labbing and things like that, you start to grow what you've got, and you get really comfortable with what you can do and things like that. So other than that, that is pretty much all I had for you guys for this evening. So if you guys have any questions on anything specific that you wanted to cover, let me know in the comments section. If you want, there's a particular thing you wanted to go cover or go over, or anything like that. But for the most part, that's kind of where. Yeah, and I figured it probably would work out great for a lot of people. If it's doing the job, then that's really all you can ask for, right? I mean, I used GNS3 for a long time. I don't remember exactly when I started making the switch to. Well, I do actually. I tried building really big labs inside of GNS3, and I always struggled with the idle PC as an issue, and trying to calm it down. So once I had figured the idle PC value, it would definitely help. But it was when the version 4 to version 5 transition came with route switch, and I found out they were making the entire exam go virtual, is when I decided that I needed to get out of that and start looking at other options. And I was turned on to the CSR 1000V and stuff like that, and that really helped with the understanding of how to work with ESXi and virtual switches and promiscuous mode. So I had to go learn some VMware so that I could get ESXi to work and the CSR 1000Vs to work, and that's how I spent probably the better part of my CCIE prep, was doing that. It gave me a lot of flexibility in that respect. So it's one of those things where if you have the time and energy to do it, great. I definitely would recommend you do it. But if you're still, if that's not gonna work for you and you have to spend more time dealing with the with GNS3, more power to you. You ever tried free router? I think I have. I think I did try getting that to work. I was turned on to it by somebody, and I tried getting it to work, but it wouldn't for some reason. I forget. It's been a long time since I've done it. Trying to think back, was it probably 7 or 8 years ago? I think I was trying to get it to work with inside VMware Workstation, and I couldn't get because I wanted to have I wanted to do like inter-routing between my networks, and it just wasn't working for some reason. And maybe it was a workstation thing, I don't know. But you're right, it is similar to Cisco in that respect. But it's one I haven't played with it. It's just another one of those software features out there that has a lot of capability. Same thing with like what is that thing? Viata? Yeah, Viata. ViOS. I've seen a lot of people use that for labs in the VMware space, especially when you're dealing with like things like NSX. But yeah, it is. So that's one of the reasons why I got that nice Cisco server, was so that I could deploy a CSR 1000V or something like that, and it would give me the ability of playing around with the technology the way that I want to, and stuff like that. So it gives me a lot of flexibility. It just, yeah. So I'm not going to knock something if it works, right? It's, at the end of the day, if you're trying to lab stuff up and you're doing what you have to do, and it works, hey, more power to you. As long as you're making forward progress, I'm not going to knock it. Could there be potentially better ways of doing it? Sure, maybe. But if you're telling me that you're using Viata or FreeRouter or some other, or maybe it's what's something else that's out there? PFSense, SonicWall, something that's like freeware or open source, and you can run it on a box to do the job you need it to do, then and it does the job. Hey, you know what? More power to you. I'm happy you're able to get it to work, and you did something that I never put my time and effort into. So, more power to you on that one. But it's good stuff. I enjoy it. Because if you're a little bit more resourceful than I am when it comes to that type of stuff, and I get frustrated very quickly when I can't get something to work. Actually, funny story. I'm actually working through. This is a Fortinet lab that I'm working through right now, and specifically to work. And for whatever reason, and I don't know why, I haven't spent the time to dig into it yet, I can't get the site-to-site VPN between FN1 and FN2 to come online, even though I've got everything configured the way I think it should be. So it's kind of weird in how it's working. I can't get server 1 to talk to server 2 over the VPN. So it was one of those things where I followed the wizard inside of Fortinet, and it just isn't working. I don't know why. So as far as I'm concerned, it's one of those things where if I take the 10 minutes to look at each side of it without any distractions, I should be able to figure out what's going on with it. But, the same thing with SD-WAN. I need to spend time reading through the SD-WAN config guide, understanding how Fortinet does it, and then actually get it stood up and working. And, I'm sure it'll just be like, oh, yeah, you were just being an idiot and you forgot to do this, or whatever the case might be. So it's one of those things I keep working through and stuff like that. So, par for the course as far as I'm concerned. So, but yeah, other than that, guys, that's pretty much what I had for you guys. A little bit of stuff that I'm working through, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows on my side either. I have to deal with troubleshooting and trying to figure out why something's not working and stuff like that. And I want to be able to. It's one of those things where if it's not working, I will sit there and figure it out. Yeah, man, I definitely like doing it. It keeps me out of trouble. I would rather be spending my time trying to get a site-to-site VPN to work versus trying to complete some stupid mission in some video game, and I get some achievement that pops up when I, whatever, accomplish the mission, and I have nothing to show for it. You know what I mean? So I'm always spending my time trying to benefit myself in ways that are going to actually be useful to me down the road. Don't get me wrong, I still video game a little bit here and there, but it's like very, very, very far and few between when I play a video game versus when I'm labbing or reading something up, or I'm working on writing a book or recording videos. And so, but yeah, other than that, yeah, I'm right there with you. So yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. So I'm gonna, like I said at the beginning of this live, I am working on. I'm pausing briefly the CCNP Encore and NRC workbook because I want to spend time creating a. It's going to be a short workbook, but it'll be a workbook for CCNA, covering all the configuration specific topics. So it'll be, a workbook that walks you through how to configure everything. And then there will be lab-specific packet tracers that I'm going to be developing, and I'm a video series to go along with all that. So that's something I'm working on, going through all that. So I'll be hoping to have something like that done in the next month or so. Now, I'm not completely stopping the Encore and RC workbook, but it's I'm kind of splitting my time between the two, but I've got some ideas, and I'm just like, well, the idea is fresh, and CCNA seems to be a barrier to entry for a lot of folks. I figure, if there's something that's specific to implementation, that might be useful to somebody. So, but anyway, that's kind of what I've got going on right now. So, if there's something you want to see or covered, it pretty much really doesn't matter what it is, because I've got a list of things on my whiteboard that you can't see. I'm looking past the camera of all the stuff that I want to go play around with and test out and then write content for and things like that. If there's something you guys are looking for coverage on, let me know. I am working on Fortinet because I have to for work, but at the same point in time, I'm generally interested in getting this to work and having SD-WAN deployed and playing around with it. It doesn't seem very complicated, but then again, I'm just now starting to look into it. So, but anyway, that's pretty much all I have for you guys this evening. So I had to do the Wednesday call today because I'm traveling all day tomorrow, and I probably won't be home before the call starts. So, so yeah. Good stuff. And after spending 5 hours in the car, I'll probably be done for the day when it comes to wanting to travel. So yeah, other than that, you guys have a good rest of your week. Unless there's something somebody wants to talk about before I end the live, we can definitely hang out for a few extra minutes. But if you guys don't have anything pressing or spectacular you want to talk about, I'll give you guys about a minute to throw something in the chat if you want to talk about it. But other than that, that's pretty much all I have. So, looking forward to the weekend. It's supposed to be really nice here. Or at least that's what the weatherman says, and they're usually half right. So, looking pretty good tomorrow too. It's supposed to be almost 80 tomorrow, which is nice. I'm looking forward to that. Some rain overnight, but yeah, good stuff. Alright, well, since nobody's throwing anything in the chat, I will cut you guys loose. There's don't forget about the Friday coaching session. We'll definitely be having that. And I will be, I forget what I'm actually supposed to be talking about on that. In Windsor, okay. Nice. Yeah, we'll pick up. So we talked about exam versions of code and platforms in our last coaching session. We're going to continue that conversation, but we're going to start building out topologies around the different exam blueprints. So what you would have to build out in order for, to get certain things working, and best practice for doing stuff, that kind of stuff. So anyway, you guys have a good rest of your week, and I will catch any of you that are interested on the coaching session on Friday at 7. So you guys have yourselves a good rest of the night, and I will see you, those of you that are interested, I'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good one, y'all.